Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
We have begun live streaming. Thumbs are up. Thank you. Right, members, apologies. I have received apologies from the chair himself, Councillor Hockian, Councillor Kate Evans, Alderman Kennedy, Councillor Joy Ferguson, and Councillor Julie Flaherty. Is there any other apologies? Councillor Nelson has their apologies in. Thank you. Item 2 on our agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any declaration of interest, members? No declaration of interests. Okay, we're going on to item 3, environmental health report. And this has been circulated to all members. It is an information item, but item in relation to that. It's going to be presented by Elizabeth Rainey. If members are content, it is an information item. If you have any questions on it, basically there's no significant changes in relation to the legislation outlined, and we're happy to get to the next stage if you are content. Okay, members, content? Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda, which is the environmental services report, and this has been circulated, and there's a couple of decision items in relation to this, and that's going to be presented by Barry Patience. The first one on the agenda, 4.1, is the reusable cloth nappy scheme. So I'm going to ask Barry now if he can open up. Thank you.
Evening, Chair, evening, members. The report before you this evening is about reusable cloth nappies. So, members, over the years, we've looked at this a number of times in committee, and really it was based on a 2008 research done by DEFRA, and what it suggested was that there wasn't a significant a benefit to using real cloth nappies at that point in time. In 2021, however, DEFRA has commissioned another research paper on that. They looked at the full life cycle analysis of real cloth nappies, and the conclusion is now somewhat different in the fact that they are more environmentally friendly than the disposable nappies. So the report gives some details about that in relation to the CO2 that's saved. Number of councils have already are already in this scheme, and what we would be proposing is that for every £50 that, or above that a family would spend on, it's a pack of nappies that has liners as well as the nappies themselves, that council would subsidise that for £30. Other councils have done it, and there tends to be about 50 people who want involved in it. So we have worked out that really the saving in landfill, so physically the saving that we would have from people putting the disposable nappies into their waste bin and us then having to process that, would pay for the scheme itself. We would review it after a year to see if it was working, see if there was anything we could do better. So really, I think this is a good way to demonstrate the council are looking at different ways of working. So officers would be very content if members consider that and go ahead with that option, but down to members as always.
Okay, thank you, Barry. We have 3 councillors looking to speak here. So the first councillor is Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Really welcome the setup of this scheme. I think it'll be incredibly beneficial for a number of families and residents. I know I raised that back in March at this committee, but I'm sure it was raised before that on numerous occasions. So thank you to officers who have put it together. It has worked well in other areas from talking to other councillors there, so I'm sure it will be no different in terms of cost effectiveness and reducing waste. I suppose just one question around when it'll go live, but very happy to propose. Thank you.
Barry, do you want to answer that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for those comments. We will be able to establish it and get it up and running before April next year, if members are content that we go ahead.
Alderman Greenfield.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Barry, for your report. Yeah, I'm happy to second it. It's something that has been lobbied for a few times to myself, and certainly thank you for coming tonight. I know it's took a bit of work to get at this stage. Just around, appreciate also that it's fairly straightforward looking application form, which is good to see that should be done. So, yeah, happy to second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Greenfield. And could I have Councillor McConville Walker, please?
Thank you, Chair. It was just to say in support of the scheme. I think it looks like an excellent scheme. Good to see our council follow in line with other councils where it's successful. And thank you very much, Barry, for the report. No doubt it'll have good benefits to the environment. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConville Walker. Right, members, thank you. We've had a proposer and we're seconder. Happy to accept. Thank you. Happy to accept. Item 4.2, grant award from Environmental Strategic Fund. And we're going to call on Barry again on this front. Thank you. Sorry. No, that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. So the report again, if members would remember last month, we also brought a report asking for accepting some money. So this is 2 months in a row. So Marcus's team are doing excellent work. So if you look at the body of the report, it goes through the fact that the Biodiversity Service have applied for money to help with the decline in endangered breeding species in the loch, and that's the curlew and lapwing. The department then, when they got that application, asked them, have actually come back to the team and asked them to extend that to include peatland work as well. So it lays out here the money that they've offered is 68,700. It's over 5 years. It would be renewed every year. There's a number of actions out of that, which again are listed there. Many of them I'll draw your attention to are based with the community. So it's not just statistical work, it is work with the communities that are there and bringing those on board as well as farmers, etc. So we would recommend that you would accept this letter of offer and allow officers to continue to do this work.
Councillor McClellan.
Yes, sure. Thank you for letting me in, and thank you to Barry for the report. And yeah, you know, this is a good news story, and I think it's to be encouraged. And I think one of the most heartening things, and you touched on it, Barry, was the nimbleness in the process in terms of a couple of applications. Both organisations got together and it became one. So I think it's that type of thing that we need to be encouraging very big time. The other comment I would have would be at point 8, they're building a community to include farmers, NIA and other stakeholders. I know certainly from a previous life within UFU, anything that involved Loch Ness and stakeholders inevitably was essentially farmers against about 39 other organisations. So, and essentially it was quite one-sided. So I suppose let's hope that as we move forward, it can be real and meaningful engagement as we all move forward to protect Loch Ness, which is one of our best assets. And certainly I would have no problem proposing that we accept the report from officers. Thank
you.
Yes, and I think that's a very good point about working with the farmers. So Marcus and his team with 2 projects to do with water quality and peat have worked actively with farmers and have a really good relationship with them. So certainly anything that Marcus is involved in the team, we know that will be practical and will be focused with those people and those stakeholders to actually take on work. And the relationship we built up with the farmers have been fantastic. So I think you're quite right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Councillor McClellan, for your proposal. We're going to call in Councillor McConville Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be delighted to second this proposal. It looks like a really interesting scheme of work, sir. Really, really important. I've spoken quite a few times about Lough Neagh in this chamber, so it's good to see that other areas, not just the water, are being taken into consideration here. Particularly interested there in the community engagement. That'll be great, because I know there's a lot of community groups keen to get working to improve Lough Neagh and the surrounding areas. So I'll just echo the sentiment of Councillor McClellan there to say that this is a great scheme, and thank you very much for the officers for your work on that.
Thank you, Councillor McConville Walker, and it is good to have Marcus here tonight. I recently had been on site with Marcus at Craigavon Dam in relation to an NEA scheme and other department funding in relation to scheme there in relation to improving the waterways and working from the farmland right down to the dam itself and the improvements that was being made there. And Marcus and his team has been doing an excellent job. I think many times maybe going unnoticed by us, but sometime it would maybe be good to receive a report or an update from Marcus into the schemes that we are involved in. So I think that's something maybe Jonathan and team and Barry can take forward, and we'll get Marcus into the hot seat to give us an update on the excellent work that they're doing. So welcome here, Marcus, and thank you, councillors. Okay, so we've had a proposer and a seconder in relation to that. Members happy? Okay, thank you. We're just going to, there's an information item, members, in 4.3, and it's an update on the MOU with DFI regarding assistance in periods of significant snow and ice. Now, whilst it's an information item, I think it would be good if Barry could give us a brief overview, because there's a lot of new councillors that are in the chamber this evening, and I think it would be helpful just to bring us all up to speed as to what this really means and entails, because the older councillors like ourselves have been well involved in discussions over the years. So Barry, I'll hand it over to you, and then members can ask questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll be brief. So the MOU is a memorandum of understanding that we have, and all councils in Northern Ireland have, with DFI. Really what it is about is, in a period of prolonged and severe ice and snow that are maybe affecting our town centres, for example, they may call on council to give assistance. They may call on council for assistance, they may not. When they do call, or if they do call, council are under no obligation to assist them. Okay, so this is an agreement, an understanding that we will assist them in a way that is safe, and if we can do it. So therefore, if, for example, there's heavy snow and some of our teams aren't able to do their normal work, then they may do work for DFI that they aren't able to do. They are the ones that make the decision, is this prolonged and severe enough that they enact this. But as I say, we have no responsibility for it. There is no obligation to do it, but we have in the past, on a number of occasions, assisted out with the staff that we have available, with the equipment we have available. It's often about throwing some grit down on a footpath. But again, that is DFI's decision about when that is called, and then we as officers will look at it and see, is it feasible that we do it. The other bit I should make you aware of is that a number of months ago we brought a report because we are checking out the legal considerations and the liabilities around that MOU as well. But I can assure you that we will continue to work under it as it sits at the minute. And I've talked to our legal people, and they're content with that as well. And DFI understand that. So there won't be a gap while we're doing this other work to dot our I's and cross our T's. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Barry. I'm going to call upon Alderman Greenfield.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Barry, for the report. I suppose, Barry, is just around the memo of understanding there. And point 10, and it says, during extreme conditions, following heavy snowfalls or prolonged freezing to be determined by DFI, ABC staff may be called upon to assist DFI with footway clearance, salt grit, spreading on an agreed schedule of footways. And then point 11 goes on about, we will nominate someone who's so responsible. I suppose my question is more around, we've debated this a few times in the chamber over years, and sometimes, and you sort of touched on it there at the end, that we're legally looking at this. Sometimes we seem to be that we can't decide to clear footpath if we want to do it as a council, or am I wrong on that? Because I'm thinking there we've had quite a few light switch ons and stuff on. I mean, these things are happening in our town centres and we can't do it. So is this still the case where only if DFI, because anytime, it's not very often I ever see DFI actually do clear footpaths in the town centres. There always seems to be this thing, it's not councils, it's not them. It goes back and forward quite a bit. I suppose what I'm asking is, in our member of understanding, if we decided we want to do something as members here, would we be able to say, yes, we can now do that? Or are we always going to be in a situation where only if DFI decide to do it? Because, you know, it's not, it says there about prolonged freezing and heavy snowfalls. If it's snowing on one day and somebody falls on the street in Banbridge, you know, it's quite a hill there. We simply, if it was shop owners would be asking us sometimes, they're scared to put grid out because nobody knows is it their responsibility or not. And so I suppose I was wanting to know, I know we mightn't have staff, we mightn't be able to do it, but I don't think if we're moving forward that we should still be in a situation where we can't decide if we want to actually do something if we had an event done, or if we felt there was a special reason why this would need to be done. So is that, am I reading it right, Barry, or what, if we just ask that?
Nice, easy question then. Yeah, pretty much you're reading it right. So I'll sort of dispel a couple of things. DFI are not responsible to grit anywhere. Okay. And this is me layman's terms. This is not legalistic sort of language. They endeavor to do certain things on roadways. So therefore, if somebody slips when they're out in a car and the road isn't gridded, that's their concern because they are responsible for their car. They are not responsible to grit footpaths either. However, what they have said and what we have agreed as councils across Northern Ireland is if they deem it necessary that for a particular reason, for example, in the town centres that are identified here, that they would ask us to do this work, or they would ask if we could assist them with this work, then we can consider it. We cannot go and do that work because then we are not underneath their liability. So in that it talks about that if we carry out this work on their request, we then are protected to a degree in relation to their liability. Now, what that means is it's best endeavours. Okay. So again, not on a legal term, but best endeavours is if you're doing something for the right reasons. Therefore, if we had staff out and they gridded a footpath and missed a bit, it is not our liability then if someone falls in that bit that isn't gridded. I would consider to be, and this is only my opinion, shops would be exactly the same. In other words, if they were doing it for the right reasons, the liability would be difficult to prove. But the question you were asking is, could we start and do this ourselves? First is we wouldn't be covered in relation to liability. Second is that we would have to take staff off other duties. And thirdly, there is no budget for any of this sort of stuff. So again, it tends to be prolonged and severe. So it has happened maybe 4 times over the last 10 years that we would do something like this because it tends to be extreme and unusual. And that's why we can do it on occasions. If we were to do it every time it was freezing or every time there was a frost, you know, our staff would then be doing nothing else. And then we're back to the legal issues as well as the costs. So I know that isn't the answer you want, but that's pretty much where we are. And the other councils in Northern Ireland are exactly the same. This is a standard document. And we are looking at it and just to firm up on some of those issues that I've identified to give us as much protection as we can. But that's the situation as it stands at the moment.
Alderman Greenfield, you're looking to come back in, are you?
Yeah, and I suppose I probably knew that was going to be the response, Barry, but my point probably is we're saying that they have no responsibility over it, no legal responsibility to it. We don't, but we have to ask them if they decide they want it done. Do you know, I think there's something that makes it, you know, we want to do the best for our area. I know we don't have staff and we're not doing it. If you've emailed the DFI, they'll tell you it's not up to them to have roads ice free and snow free. We all know that, but I think it's just that we still can't, if we decided that we wanted to do something, that we can't do it. We can't approach them and ask for permission to do it, yet they can call on us if they decide. You know, I'm not sure that it's a very sensible way at all, to be honest, but it's just my opinion on it. I thought maybe when we're in the middle of this, we could have had a look at to changing it slightly, but if it's a standard document, maybe that's not the case.
Thank you, Alderman Greenfield. Councillor McElrath.
Thank you, Chair. You might have regretted opening up this one, but no, listen, mine's pretty simple. Through you, Chair, to Barry. Listen, just remind me, we're coming into this time of the year again. Just remind me about our car parks. Know this refers to footpaths and all, and listen, you know, I suppose what we would say, cautious welcome around this. But you know, I'm thinking of McGowan West last year when we had this period of like snow, then started melting, then it froze, and the footpaths and the car parks were a nightmare, and there was a number of falls in McGowan West. We lift the revenue off the car park. What's the situation with the car parks? Just remind me. We're coming there again, and we will get this, no doubt, as we progress into the winter again. Those car parks that we manage and lift the revenue of, if you don't mind just updating us. Thanks, Chair.
Hello. Yes, so similar sorts of questions, and it's mostly about liability. So we have on a number of occasions had legal advice that if we were to grit, and if it was therefore a standard that we would grit, the process for that has to be exactly the same every day. So therefore, if we gritted one day and didn't grit another, and that was part of our process, that's where we would have liability. Okay. So what our legal advice basically says is that we are better not to grit those areas, because then the expectations of the member public aren't there that it is gritted. And exactly the same way, as I said, with DFI and the roads, the expectation should not be when you're driving a car that all the roads are gritted and therefore are safe. If it is frosty, if it's on the weather, if it's on your wee dash thing to say that it's below 4 degrees or whatever, you should expect that it will be slippy. So therefore, that's what our legal advice has said on a number of occasions. We've brought it in the pre-councils and in our new council as well. And it's actually better protection not to do it than to do it, and therefore not set a proper process for it that, again, we haven't a way of doing. There are some of the car parks that have grit boxes in it, and people may wish to throw some grit down, especially if it's a bit of a slope or something. But again, that is not the same as council setting a precedent of saying we are going to grit a car park. If we then forget, or if it's then on Christmas Day, for example, when we don't have staff out, we're into a whole pile of trouble. Whereas the standard approach is, and the legal advice says, that the liability is safest if we don't grit them at all. And that's the way it sits at the moment.
Thank you, Barry. I think that's clear. Councillor McElrath, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Barry for the clarity just on some of them issues. And I agree with Alderman Greenfield here. I can see a lot of problems because I don't think it's absolutely clear, you know, that it isn't the council's responsibility. I had a lot of businesses on to me even before I was elected, just with problems. And I know, obviously, Barry, what you're saying there about the legal aspect of it, you know, that, you know, we're not free to actually do it without DFI's consent. And I think I speak of all members here with nothing but trouble from DFI, to be honest. But that's neither here nor there. But I can see problems, you know, and I don't think it's very clear to businesses that the council isn't actually responsible. And I don't know if there's any way of actually getting that out there, because it's going to be members here that's going to be getting the phone calls and emails and wondering why nothing's been done, you know. So I don't know if there's any way that we can inform the businesses and stuff that really the council isn't really responsible for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe, and I'd like to thank Barry for giving us that overview. I think it has been helpful. Yes, of course, it's still a DFI issue. It's something that they're responsible, and I think we have to manage that MOU very, very carefully, that all our staff isn't out on the streets cleaning it. It's up to us to make it clear to DFI of their responsibilities and the businesses in the towns. But Barry, thank you very much. Now, folks, I'm going to seek a proposer and a seconder to go into committee for consideration of confidential items of business. Could I have a proposer? Alderman Mutry and Councillor McElrath, proposed by Alderman Mutry and seconded by Councillor McElrath. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, exempt information, we will now be moving into confidential session of the council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask the ICT officers to please turn off the feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Could I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor McClelland, Councillor Ratcliffe, proposed, seconded by Councillor Ratcliffe. Thank you. Got the thumbs up. Agenda item 6, correspondence. There are no items of correspondence. Lastly, any other relevant business. Members, I would like to remind those that are on the environmental services workshop that it's immediately after this meeting, and if I could have full attendance as possible, because as you're aware, there's very important issues that come up at it. So as good attendance as possible in the committee room downstairs, and there's a cup of tea for you. Members, thank you very much. And this stage, could we wish you a happy Christmas if we'll not see you at the next one? Okay, thank you.